right, guys, it is game day. Welcome to Submission Radio Game Day. First ever episode, and I'm very excited to have a couple of very special guests. This first man has tried to escape MMA, but I pulled him back in. An exciting new book coming out about one of my favorite fractions in pro wrestling history, the NWO, and he is here to talk about that as well as help us get ready for UFC 315. Marc Raimondi, how did I get you back into MMA?
I don't know what you mean back into MMA because I've never watched a fight before, honestly. So I'm not really sure what I'm doing on this MMA program. I've never seen a fight, but maybe you guys can educate me on the sport.
Yeah. The guy forgot more than we ever knew. But the next guest here is one of my faves to talk to. One of the funniest guys out there, killing it in the commentary game. Joining me here today after a little break, Ben Davis. Huh?
Let's go.
You got your shirt on. What's going on? No one's going to watch now.
I can take it off, man. I mean, we get a super chat in here, then the top can pop. I'm only here to talk about wrestling, though. I don't even give much of a shit about the card. We're only here to talk wrestling today.
Great. Everyone's tuning out. Everyone's tuning out as we speak. Hey, just quickly, guys, before we get into the card, I just got to get a quick reaction from you fellas. RDR, and is killing it in the middleweight division. We were wondering what was going to happen for him next, and now he's fighting Robert Whitaker. Just got announced officially by MMA Junkie. Mark, I got to ask you, RDR, dude, I don't know how much you've seen on him. Obviously, you've been on a book tour and killing it, but he just got through Bo Nickel. It was the big narrative of the week. He's kind of a throwback to that old school style where he's so good in one thing, he's able to dominate and use it in an exciting way in his fights. What do you think about him getting Robert Whitaker next? A guy who lost against Hamzat, a guy who's kind of got a lot of tough matchups lately, and he's got a lot of question marks around himself as well.
Yeah, I pay attention a little bit to RDR, I guess is what people are calling him. I know him from One Championship, right? So this is a guy that, if you guys remember, not too long ago, when I was still covering the sport of mixed martial arts, this man could not get a fight in one, right? He was begging on social media, like, I'm not getting a fight. I'm a 2-belt. I think he was like he was a multiple belt champion in One Championship. Yeah. And dude could not get a fight. And everyone knew he was really good, but the way that One Championship is that they were not keeping these guys active, and he was a victim of that. And I'm so glad to see him in the UFC and to show that that he is as good as people thought that he was, because a lot of people that were paying attention to the sport knew that he was very good. And now here he is, and he's got a real chance against Robert Whitaker to not only, make a name for himself, but put himself into the upper echelon of that division. And it's a division, frankly, that I think needs some new blood and some new faces, because middleweight is kind of, been struggling a little bit in some ways.
Ben, is this the right fight?
I don't know if it's the right fight. He deserved to step up, but this is the Reaper we're talking about. This is a guy that's battled with the best at 185. And no disrespect to Kevin Holland, Gerald Mearshart, and Bo Nickel, but Whitaker is a step above. I mean, this is a couple letter grades, I think, that RDR is stepping into. So is it too much too soon for the cat who's 3-0 inside the UFC at the moment? Maybe, but they're both 34 years young. So Ryder Day Ritter, he needs to kind of accelerate. So I'm not mad at it any way, shape, and form. Whitaker needs a bounce back. RDR needs a big step up, and we get a fun main event. So yeah, I'm all for it. I don't know if RDR is going to pull it off, but I'm getting shades of Dricus du Plessis and Whitaker, right? Kind of feels like a similar matchup. So we know how that one went. Let's see if it repeats in July.
He's trained with DDP as well, guys. He said that he's trained with Hamzat. He's trained with DDP. He's trained with Sean Strickland. He's kind of game, right? Like, he just loves being in there. He's got that DDP thing where he just makes it work. I spoke to him last week, Mark, and I said, oh, what do you make about all these DDP comparisons? And apparently he said his wife showed him. He had no idea that people thought he was goofy. And he's like, fuck him, I don't care. He's like one of those guys, Do you think this is a guy, Mark, that can make it all the way up to the top and contend for the title? Do you think he can make it all the way?
Yeah, I don't see why not, Dennis. I mean, I think he has the skill set, he has the ability. And again, it's like, I don't mean to crap on the middleweight division, but it is not the best division in the UFC, and there is upward mobility there if you have the right attributes, and I think he's a guy that has that. And 34, though, that's a good point by Bain there. Like, that's we're getting to the age where you're either at your prime or you're kind of on the downward slope. So it's now or never.
All right. Well, what about 38, fellas? Because 38 is the age of Jose Aldo, who came into this fight seemingly fighting a bantamweight and had the weight of the fight change against Zahabi to featherweight. The big story here, of course, is why the hell was Jose Aldo fighting him in the first place? The guy's a 38-year-old legend who should be having fun fights and got put on this card in a matchup that seemingly made absolutely no sense. Mark, what was your reaction when this fight got moved and then Aldo basically said, all right, I'm going back to featherweight because bantamweight was a second title side quest for me?
Zero reaction, Dennis, because I was not paying attention that hard to the world of mixed martial arts when that all happened. But that's news. Thank you very much. That was breaking news for me. I was covering the Atlanta Falcons at that point. That's American football. Dennis,
yes. A
okay.
secondary football league. Yeah,
but look, I've never been a fan of Jose Aldo at 135 pounds. I remember the first time he cut down to 135, being at the media day and seeing him there, and he looked frail and feeble, and that's not what you want to see out of one of the greatest of all time. And honestly, I mean, look, I will never begrudge him for continue, or any fighter really, for continuing to fight, because they have to make a living, and that's just, unfortunately, they don't get paid well enough for the most part to have their entire life ahead of them with wealth, for the most part, unless you're Conor McGregor. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that has really had that. Maybe John Jones, but not even him at times, it seems. So he's got to keep fighting to make money for him and his family. He's got kids. He's got a family. So I don't like to see him at 135. But I'm glad that he's moving back to 145, I guess, permanently now. But man, I mean, for years, I don't think he should have been fighting at 135, and he kept doing it, and he had some measure of success there, certainly. But I don't love it. I don't love him. I don't love him still fighting, honestly, like I said. But I understand why he still is.
It's crazy. As I go to you, Bane, and just an example of him cutting down, and you just see a guy that's supposed to be chilling out at 38. Basically putting his body through hell. For what is my question. Bane, what after this stupid matchup that basically does not matter whatsoever today, what do you want to see for Jose Aldo as he potentially has his last couple of fights at featherweight?
Well, much like the Atlanta Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins, it might just be time to lay it up, right? 36 years for Kirk. Aldo right up there with him. So it doesn't really seem to me like there is a future or a next fight for Aldo. This has all been questionable following his return from boxing, right? He took Jeremy Stevens to a draw, beat Esteban Espinandola and Emmanuel Zambrano. So I felt like, hey, he's going to be gloved up, and that's the last we've seen. But now it's taking on contenders. Now it's taking on the younger generation. Like you mentioned, guys, for what? Why? If we were doing Dominic Cruz, if we were doing legends fights, right, that are sprinkled on pay-per-views, I'm all about it. Why not? GFL couldn't do it. Maybe we can. So I don't know. But it's the contenders that I just don't get. It's these up-and-comers like Amin Zahabi, which, no disrespect to Amin, I have great admiration for what he's done. 5-fight win streak against really respectable competition. Munoz, undefeated. Basharat, tough winner. Ricky Tercios. But Zahabi should be fighting someone that would be more of a statement for him moving forward, I would say. So, I don't know. I mean, is what it is. It's a fight.
And it's funny that you said up and comer, because I think Zahabi himself isn't the youngest anyway. Like it's he's going into this fight a little bit older. By the way, Mark,
he's 37.
He's 37. And Mark, by the way, did you see the weigh-in for him? Did you see? He looked like a friend of yours. Did you see him in his suit? I'm gonna pull up this photo of him right here.
What are we talking about?
Zahabi. Let me show you.
Zahabi? Oh yeah. I mean, look, I know the joke, right? He looks like Hawani.
Did he deliberately get that suit to look like was this a coincidence?
I don't think he needs to do anything to deliberately look like Hawani. He just looks like Hawani. I mean, that's what it is. If he was wearing like a plaid shirt and glasses, maybe I would say he was deliberately trying to look like him. It does look a lot like Ariel. It does look quite a bit like Ariel. I'm not gonna lie.
Look at Dana White just staring at him, trying to make sure whether it's Ariel. Pitbull versus Jose Aldo. Mark, before it's all said and done, is it time to do it? He's finally in the UFC.
I mean, sure, that's fine. You know, I'm not. I don't hate that. I think I did see that Pitbull, lost his first fight in the UFC. He's also, on the downward slide. People don't realize how good he was in his prime. Pitbull, and his prime really wasn't even that long ago. It was a very long prime. But yeah, why not? I mean, do that in Brazil.
Mm. Now, Bane, I got to go back to you. It's an interesting one. Valentina Shevchenko, an underdog going into this fight right here. I was a bit surprised to see it. I don't know about you. Do you see her as an underdog today as she defends her belt?
It's interesting because Valentina Shevchenko's trilogy with Alexa Grasso, to me, was not the greatest of fights. I don't think it showed the depth in her tool belt. But that could be answered by the age, right? Valentina's not a young champion anymore. And so maybe with getting older, she's dulled her ability to reach deep into that kit that she's got. So I don't know. I mean, Manon Fiorot, big size advantage, I think, in this one, but it's a fight where I just, guys, I don't want to be crazy, but I'm just not fucking drawn to it. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't care less.
Don't be wild, Ben. Don't be wild. Hot take. Continue.
It's a fight. It's a fight.
I don't think, well, this is the problem, right, Mark? You were in the heyday of women's MMA. You used to cover it when it was like prime time, must watch, Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg. The names eclipse the men for a really good period of time. What's your reaction to where it's at today? And can they do anything to bring it back here? Do you like anything coming up? Like, obviously, Kayla Harrison is going to be in the mix for the belt. Do you think she's enough to bring that momentum back? Maybe Amanda Nunes getting back in there, or do you think at the moment it's looking kind of bleak?
I mean, I love Kayla Harrison as a human being and as a fighter, but she's in her 30s as well, so I don't think she's the future of anything. She's the present. Yeah, women's MMA is not where I think many people thought it would be 12 years now after the UFC brought it in. 2013 was when Ronda Rousey debuted against Liz Carmouche. I think that there have been issues. First of all, MMA is a very weird sport, right? There is no true feeder system, and there are very few fights for women on the regional circuit. Bane, I believe, knows quite a bit about regional MMA, and he's fought himself a little bit. And
he knows a lot about women on the regional circuit too. Look at him, sick.
Yeah,
sick.
Well, so it is what I'm getting at here, guys, is that it is so hard for women to even build themselves up to get a good enough record to get into the UFC. And that is a very tough barrier of entry for a lot of women, I believe, too. And I think one of the things that the UFC, in order to take things to the next level, and I think that they're obviously doing very well business-wise right now. I know maybe the pay-per-views are down and ticket prices are very expensive from what I've seen. But I think one of the things to get to the next level is development. How are they going to develop the stars of tomorrow? Because I don't think where they are now as a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, with TKO, they can just rely on regional promotions anymore. And agents and managers and whoever kind of manages these fighters' careers as they come up, they need to have more of an active role in that. Almost kind of like what NXT is to WWE. I think that's been incredibly effective for WWE to not only sustain where they are, but also build themselves up because they have that developmental system. And I think that the UFC is really missing that. And I think that's something that if they want to continue to expand globally, even here, they need to start getting NIL deals to college athletes. Start targeting some women's college athletes, volleyball players and softball players and basketball players. I mean, women's wrestling is blowing up in the United States. It's the fastest growing sport. They need to be getting on these fighters at a young age and developing them to the point where they're UFC ready and then maybe ready to then become the next stars.
It's an interesting conversation. I was talking to somebody about this, and someone who used to be an ex-pro wrestler, Mark, I don't know if you know this, but I've been training to become a pro wrestler now for a little bit. And,
you are?
I did, yeah. I decided to give up MMA. I ended up copping too many injuries. I did it for like 10 years or whatever, and I'm like, let me do pro wrestling. And it turned out to be worse on my body than any sparring sessions or MMA sessions that I used to do. But anyway, long story short, there's this notion that's starting to come out after WrestleMania the TKO is kind of fumbling the bag because the WWE storyline didn't amount to what people wanted at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
The UFC cards are kind of a little bit sterile now that the TKO group has taken over. What do you make of people starting to kind of backlash against TKO about the fact that both of the entities are kind of not doing as well as they had hoped?
I would kind of push back on that a little bit. I don't think they're doing badly. In fact, I think that both are doing excellently when it comes down to the bottom line, when it comes down to the finances and the quarterly, income statements and the stock prices. I think that they're both doing quite well. And ultimately, that's pretty much all TKO is going to care about, is how well both are doing when it comes to revenue and profits. And as long as that profit loss statement looks good, I think they're cool with it. Now, the question then becomes, how long is that sustainable when you're talking about fan satisfaction and what fans really want? And I think there was a time when the UFC was very good at giving fans what they wanted. It seems like, look, it's hard, right? It's hard to make fights. It is. It's hard to, how do you convince John Jones to fight Tom Aspinall? What do? I mean, you give him a truckload of money, of course, but there's other things that are involved with that, and you can't force anyone to do it. But I think kind of going back to the last thing that I talked about with developmental, I just think there's a lack of stars right now. It is a cyclical industry. MMA is cyclical. And it's always been that way. There have been down periods, there's been lulls, and there's been high highs. And right now, it feels like we're kind of going into a little bit of a lull. But business-wise, the UFC's never been better. So they've kind of proofed their business and their promotion against these low periods. Whereas before TKO, before the sale and everything in 2016. They were really, really volatile as a business as well. But with the TV deals and what they've done, sponsors and so on and so forth, they're pretty much recession proof essentially in a way. So it's just a matter of like the next star popping up and like the next big rivalry or storyline, something that's going to compel people that may not be your regular hardcore fans to tune in, and that's not easy to develop always. It has to be organic in some cases. It's not like WWE, right, where you can script it. You can kind of you can make the guy win that you want to win, and then that's the guy that's going to be your big star. Can't do that in MMA.
And I want to echo on that point from Mark. Look at this year with undefeated prospects. I mean, Bo Nickel aside, Carlos Prates's record inside of the UFC, losing, so many guys, Peyton Talbot, that have dropped their O's that, yes, the question is, why isn't the UFC as good at building stars anymore? Well, there is also the question of, is this crop of athletes just not delivering? They are coming up short in fights, and then that's obviously going to impact their hype and rise in momentum. So not that I would ever suggest like boxing, oh, you lose one fight and it's game over, it's wraps. But it is the fickle nature of this combat sports crowd. And I think that also has to be asked just as much as, the UFC not able to promote or build as effectively as they once did.
People loving Mark being back in MMA. We might have to keep you around, and of course you as well, Ben. I got to also, by the way, Strikeforce, Pride. That didn't hurt their roster when those shut, right? Because those guys basically dominated the UFC as well when they came over. But also,
that's a really good point, Dennis. And I want to add one thing to that. This is really the first era of the UFC where there's no like big free agent signings to bring in, because there's really no other. All due respect to PFL and Bellator is not even a thing anymore. One championship. There's just not a lot of fighters in those places that fans are like clamoring to see in the UFC fighting the big names. I think that once Bellator was done and that crop of guys that were really good, they're either in the UFC now or they're not. There's just not those like star fighters out there that people want to see against the best the UFC has to offer.
Just before we get off this, Mark, I want to quickly check with you. What do you make of the statement of people saying Dana White, his head's not really into it anymore? The Fertitta brothers, they're the ones that would go out, make these deals. We all know, like, when the Chris Weidmans didn't fight, they would take Chris Weidman out to dinner. They would talk him into a fight. Like, they were kind of the relationship guys here. And now it's kind of Dana White, Hunter Campbell. What do you make of the criticism that people say that, hey, Dana's head's not really in this? Hunter's a sort of different guy to the Fertittas, and maybe these guys just can't get it done like the old system used to and the old matchmakers used to.
I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that. I think Hunter Campbell is very much the relationship guy, and I think that he earnestly has built these relationships with agents and with fighters and their teams, and I think for the most part he is pretty well liked. Certainly, there's a certain ruthlessness when it comes to the UFC and how they do business, and that hasn't really changed. That's kind of been the way it has been for the whole time the UFC has existed. That's just what makes them the UFC. And as far as Dana White being checked out, look, I mean, he has been doing this now since 2001, right? So we're talking about now more than 2 decades as being the figurehead and being the face and the promoter of the UFC. You can't help but, as a human being, want to kind of expand your horizons and do other things and take on other challenges. The thing about Dana White is that Dana White is at his best as a promoter, as a businessman, as anything, when he has an adversary, when he has something that he's building and he's trying to convince you that, hey, this is the next thing. The truth is that when it comes to the UFC, man has already won. He has won the battle. He has won the war. The war is over. Everybody else lost. All the naysayers back in the 2000s, they lost. They're dead and buried. Dana White won. He's the winner. And I think, and this is just my perspective, I don't think he's comfortable with that. I think he wants to keep fighting. And that's where Power Slap comes in. And that's where, TKO boxing or whatever this ends up happening comes in. He wants to be fighting. He wants to get in there. He's a street fighter. And he beat everybody when it comes to the UFC. He beat all of boxing. He beat everyone in MMA. He beat all the naysayers, the John McCains. You know what I mean? Those people are all gone. And now it's just the UFC at the top of the mountain. So I can't help but think that that's why he wants to kind of expand, because the war is over. He won MMA. Now what's up? What's next?
It's a little bit like Vince McMahon when he started the XFL and when he did the powerlifting league and stuff. Like, Bane, what do you think of Dana White? Obviously you're a part of the industry, you're a commentator. What do you think of Dana White trying to get into boxing and put his own model into boxing? Do you think it's going to fly?
Well, if you looked at Zuffa boxing from the early 2010s, that never really found its way off the ground. But now
somebody made a T-shirt though.
That's true. We did get the merchandise, which is a big portion of it. No, I think that aligning himself with Turki Al-Sheikh to really figure out the ins and outs of getting this done is going to create some sort of a product. Is it going to be long-term? Unsure. Will it be sustainable? Can't answer that question. But am I confident that Dana and Turki will be able to put on an event, seemingly Crawford and Canelo? Absolutely. Yeah. I think that when he tried Zuffa boxing before, he didn't have a guy like Turki. Didn't have somebody that could break through all of those doors, that already is beloved by the sport and everybody is, leaning and bending towards him. So I think that this is the more right steps for Dana to penetrate the boxing market. Will it be successful? I don't know. I always wanted the surfing show. You know what I mean? I was a big Ultimate Surfer guy, and I'm just waiting for that to come back.
Well, I know that he's not booking the right Ultimate Fighters, because I see John Jones is versing Nate Diaz in a Thailand version of a Russian Ultimate Fighter. So those matchups aren't being made. Mark, do you think boxers being underpaid and Dana's strategy can actually take over the boxing game?
I think that a takeover is very difficult because boxing is so entrenched. It is 100+ years old, right? When Dana White came into MMA, it was still kind of like this nascent infant idea, just like a decade old and less than a decade old, and like not even on pay-per-view, and he had to kind of resurrect it from the grave. Boxing is not like that. Boxing has been around a long time. There's a lot of established players that are already there. It's not going to be as easy for him. Not that, and please don't get me wrong here. Building the UFC was not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a different animal. There's the Ali Act, which I know they're trying to kind of like change the language of that and how that works. But I don't really know what the goal is of what this TKO boxing thing is. From what I've seen, it seems like they may want to build younger, boxers and kind of create stars rather than, picking up the stars of today. They want to kind of create the stars of tomorrow. But then at the other hand, though, it's like when you have Saudi Arabia and Turki Al-Sheikh as your money people, nothing is out of reach because they have just unlimited funds. So it's like you have like the promotional power of Dana White and you have the money of Turki Al-Sheikh, and that's a pretty difficult thing to get into the ring with. If you're a competitor, right? If you're an Oscar De La Hoya or if you're an Al Heyman or whoever.
It's going to be interesting, man. I see Eddie Hearn and the guys starting to band together to take on Dana White. Who would have thought that these guys would be brought together by Dana White to try and take him out? It's almost like a funny backwards way of them all becoming friends in an ultimate goal of taking out the man behind the Ultimate Fighter. But let me ask you this, because we're in a funny position with this event, just going back to UFC 350. What did you guys make when Dana White admitted and announced that potentially the biggest fight of the year, Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, is basically going to be decided today, depending on what happens in the decision between JDM and, of course, Belal Muhammad. Now, for those that missed it, if Belal Muhammad wins, Ilia Topuria is going to stick around at lightweight and fight potentially Ilia Topuria in the biggest fight that the UFC could really make outside of John Jones and Tom Aspinall. But if JDM wins, we will see Islam Makhachev move up to welterweight and fight the champion JDM, potentially maybe in Australia. Who knows? Bane, were you surprised when Dana White actually admitted this during the press conference and said that all of our conspiracy theories about aliens being real is true?
Yeah, surprise is a good word for it. I don't think that hinging arguably one of the biggest, most profitable fights you could book for the UFC on Belal and JDM is a tactic that anyone saw coming, and certainly one that many weren't pleased with. My expectation, again, candidly, we haven't gotten to the predictions. I don't want to jump ahead, but I assume Belal's going to retain, which does solidify that matchup. So, is what it is. You should have just announced the fight. They should have just done Ilia and Islam, in my opinion. Why even have it hinge on tonight's main event? Maybe it's trying to draw more attention and more energy to this card. Oh, hey, tune in because of what could happen now in July, which is kind of a weaker promotional tactic that I can't really get with.
Mark, ideally, if you were to choose, what do you think would be the more interesting pathway? Ilia, Islam, because it's a massive fight, or Islam moving up to welterweight to claim that second belt?
Ilia versus Islam, by far, to me, is the matchup that I think most people would want. But to your point, Bane, this is Dana White tying like these stipulations to a main event that may not be the sexiest is a tale as old as time. This has happened so many times where he'll randomly say that this is for the title, or this guy might be the pound for pound best fighter in the world. This is a few years back where he's said these kind of things. It's happened sometimes recently as well, but this is an old Dana White trick to kind of drum up more attention for a main event that may not have as much juice as he might want. So that's what I think this is all about. I do think there's legitimacy to it. I don't think he's lying by any means, and I know that Islam Makhachev has wanted to go up to 170 to fight for the belt there for a long time. Certainly, but I've only been out of the sport for a year. He was saying it even a year ago when I was still around these parts. So I want to see Ilia versus Islam. I think that Ilia Topuria is he may not be the biggest star in the United States, but I think he's a guy that globally he could be a massive star, especially like in Europe. He's already there in Spain. He's already one of the most popular athletes in all of Spain, which is crazy to say because he's not a soccer player, right? Sorry, football. I know that you guys down under call it football, but Ilia I think is massive, and that would be such a huge fight. And if he were to win that fight against Islam, which that would be, I don't know if he could, that would be a tough, road to hoe, as they say. I'm not sure who they are though. That's a very old timey statement. But yeah, it would be a great fight, and I'd be curious to see if Ilia could pull that off.
If it's Ilia and Charles Oliveira, Bane, do you think he gets through that? Do you think Ilia gets through that and grabs that interim belt, or could this whole thing fall apart?
Ilia smashes Charles Oliveira.
I agree with Mark completely, and that's what I'm scared of. As a big Charles Oliveira fan, as a Dubronx supporter, I want him to stay as far away from Ilia Topuria as fucking possible. It's because everything that Topuria excels at, I feel, is where Charles is a little bit weak. So, if you're a Charles Oliveira fan, start clutching the pearls, start praying, roll out the rosaries tonight, because if JDM wins the belt, our guy might be unconscious come July.
Should Islam Makhachev just fight Belal, Mark? Should the guys just put aside their friendship? Belal has an interesting game set that could actually make this a pretty interesting fight. Do you think the friendship should be put aside just for one night so these guys can fight?
I mean, it will, right? I don't think either one of them are saying that it won't, right? I mean, and I could be wrong because
Belal told me that he won't. I just spoke to him last week.
He won't do it.
Under any circumstance, he ain't doing it, and he'd rather move to middleweight rather than have that fight happen.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not calling Belal Muhammad a liar, but I think that there are ways to kind of get him to change his mind if that is the opportunity that arises. I get it. I mean, this is a guy that, he's been in the camps with Khabib and Islam, and he's, they know all of his tricks and he knows all their tricks, and they taught him a great deal of the tricks that he's utilizing now. And this is a guy, like, it's funny to me because I remember when Belal Muhammad first came into the UFC, and literally this guy was not a top prospect. I think you guys know this very well. He was not anyone that anyone would ever have imagined would become a champion, and he's really done it all by improving every single fight and getting better and adding things to his game and perfecting the wrestling. And I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of him because he's also someone that has taken a lot of heat over the years. He's gotten crapped on by fans a lot over the years. And I've always had a very good relationship with him, and I've always found him to be a very, good-hearted human being. So I'm just happy to see that he's in the position that he's in, honestly.
It's going to be fascinating as well to see how he goes today against JDM. Ben, yeah, I see some people breaking down this fight, talking about that JDM's boxing might be a little bit too much for Belal. He might be able to catch him throughout this fight. But we all saw when he fought Gilbert Burns, Gilbert was able to get to his hips quite easily, take him down, get him down to the ground. What do you feel about this matchup? Do you think JDM has a shot here, or do you believe this is going to be a marquee Belal performance?
Everyone's got a shot, right? Let's start off with that. JDM's boxing is crisp, but I think that it is a little bit overstated at times, right? Taking Basil Hafez, Kevin Holland to split decisions. I not having hugely effective moments, hurting both of those guys does kind of stick with me when I hear this whole JDM boxing conversation going on, right? It's not that I don't think the guy's dangerous. I just think that this one punch knockout power that people seemingly believe he has is not as existent, in reality. And like you mentioned, right? 2024 Gilbert Burns taking JDM down, controlling him for large portions of that 3-round affair. That's the big thing for me that I can't get past. And I think Belal is better at everything Gilbert Burns is good at, right? Belal's better than it. So I anticipate it to not be the most fun main event, but I think it'll be dominant. I think Belal will kind of remind everybody, look, this is why I have this belt. It's because I can do this to people.
Mark, I want to get your prediction on the main event, but before I do that, guys, this program is brought to you by Manscaped. Make sure you join one of the 12 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Use code word submission for 20% off. 20% off. And don't forget this, you get free shipping as well. They got this great bundle, the Beard and Balls bundle. You get the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Beard Hedger, which helps you sort out your beard. I love those two products so much. And of course, it's all customizable trimming. It's skin-safe technology, long-lasting power, waterproof design, precision lighting. It's travel-friendly, so people don't think you're going around with a vibrator in your bag every time you go from town to town. I'm talking to you, Mark. And of course, you guys can check out all sorts of products, T-shirts, underwear, all sorts of great things. Manscaped has you sorted lotions and potions. Make sure to go to Manscaped right now and you support this program. Code word submission. Save today at Manscaped and free shipping. Marc Raimondi, doesn't that sound good?
That sounds great. Actually, Dennis, I want to do a podcast with just you talking about your wrestling training. Have you done that yet? Because I am so curious about this. I was not aware. It's like Casper leaves and you have a midlife crisis and you jump into wrestling training. I mean, Jesus.
I have a midlife crisis every few years, and I'm only 50. Before we move on as well,
mine was leaving MMA to cover the NFL. By the way.
Yeah, that'll.
Well, yours is writing a beautiful book about the NWO. We see the poster in the back there. We'll remind people towards the end of the program, but if you're just tuning in right now, how do people pre-order this bad boy? And tell us a little bit about this book. It looks amazing, man.
Do you guys read books in Australia or
only upside down?
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I wasn't sure. Should I get it translated into Australian or
flip the words? Yeah, flip the words.
Just needs to come with some beer and we're good to go.
That's fair. It's available. The book is, in all seriousness, it's available pretty much anywhere you pre-order books. I believe if you, Dennis, right now, if you went to your computer or your phone and you went to Amazon, I think you could probably get it on Amazon. I'm not 100% sure how things work internationally. I know that in the U.S. and Canada, even I think Latin America, you can just pop on there. Maybe the UK. I'm not even sure. I should probably know this, right? But as far as all you you Westerners out there, in the States and Canada. It's very easy. It's Amazon, Barnes & Noble has it. It's on Target's website. It's on Walmart's website. So you just go to any one of those. You type in the name of the book, Say Hello to the Bad Guys. It should pop up and you can pre-order it. And it's actually on sale right now temporarily for $26.99. That's the pre-order price currently. So it's like $3 off.
You go on and then it goes.
You got it.
Out of stock. Out of stock.
No, out of stock.
Because it's such a bestseller. Because everybody's buying it.
Was that you, Dennis?
That was me, my friend. That's what happens.
So you can't get it in Australia. Well, I'm gonna make sure that you get a copy of it, but we need to figure out how we can get it to our friends down in Oz.
Let me know, and I'll share it out to everybody out there. I know a lot of people are excited, including Ben. You ordered a copy, didn't you?
Yeah, so I did pre-order it. It says now arriving June 24th. Mark, I pre-ordered this a long time ago.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. It's been on pre-order for a year. It's been on pre-order for almost a year. Yeah. It was supposed to come out in March. Sooner. It was supposed to come out in March, and it got pushed back. But June 24th, we're done. There should be actual books like within a few days, which I will send to you. I promise, Dennis. Even if it takes I don't know how this postal stuff works going to Australia. It could take like a month or two. Got to go on a boat and I don't even know. Carrier pigeon. I have no idea.
Yeah, it goes through a time warp machine and gets down here to Melbourne, Australia. And just quickly, before we move on, who's your favorite NWO member after writing this book, Mark?
My favorite member?
Yeah, number one. Doesn't have to be a Hulk Hogan.
I mean, that's like asking me to choose between my children. How could I possibly choose an NWO member? I think
Scott Hall, right? He was
gun to my head. I have to say Scott Hall. I just think that if he. It's one of those things where it's there's almost like a John Jones element to Scott Hall, where it's he had his demons and he had a hard time battling and winning over those demons. And had he done that, I think that he would have had, and he already had an all-time career. He was one of the most influential wrestlers of all time. He never won a world championship though. And if you could imagine if he was clean and if he had his stuff together, I know there's a lot of things behind that. He would have been much bigger of a name. Now for wrestling fans, he's like the guy that people look at as saying, he really, really impacted a ton going back to the 90s and 2000s. But he never became the household name that a Hulk Hogan is. And, you can even say that Kevin Nash might be more famous just because he did Magic Mike and he's been in a bunch of movies and everything. And, people watch Magic Mike. I know Bane was a big fan of that movie, I heard.
The Magic Mike fandom is quite impressive.
Yeah.
They make people stars.
That's right. So, so gun to my head, which is ironic because that's how he murdered someone early in his life. Gun to his head. That'll be in the book.
Okay.
That'll be in the book.
Yes.
Gun to my head. I'll take Scott Hall.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes, and for people who don't realize, the guy was a genius in the back, gave everybody ideas, came up with Sting, came up with a bunch of stuff. Would always create people's finishes. Was super giving, let people like X-Pac win when they shouldn't have, and was actually a really cool dude. So check out the book. There's so many stories there, and we'll figure out what the link is for the pre-order as we go to you, Mark, for your prediction for this main event. Do you think JDM can get it done against Belal?
I don't. I'm going to take Belal Muhammad, unanimous decision. I'm not sure if he gets the finish. I think that he is really going to work to get a finish in this fight. I don't know if it comes. I think JDM is pretty durable, but I do think it'll be, a 49-46 type of fight, Belal by UD.
It's interesting, right? Because let's say Belal does win, fellas, and we're looking at who's next, and it's not going to be Islam, for example. We've got some interesting fights in the works, Mark. I know, you haven't been as focused because you've been doing big cocktail parties in LA, putting your book out there. I live in
Atlanta now. I cover the Falcons, Dennis.
No, I know that on a red carpet.
I know that U.S. geography is hard, but I live on the East Coast. I live in Georgia.
What about?
I had to move.
Isn't that where you get your peaches? Get your peaches out in Georgia? Bane gets some weed in California.
But
let me ask you this.
I miss the weed in California, if I'm being honest.
Is that better? Is there a better or the?
Oh yeah, well it's not even legal. It's not even legal here. It's not legal.
Okay.
Is it legal down by you guys? You guys just walk up
recreational? Yeah.
In Australia, nah, it's not legal.
No.
It's not legal? Okay, it's legal in Canada, where the UFC is. UFC 315 in Montreal. Completely legal.
I know. And speaking of that, I mean, what do you guys think should be next for Belal if he wins? Now, Mark, obviously, you haven't been as in tune with the sport, but you got Kamaru Usman fighting Buckley. You got Ian Gary over there yelling things. You got Shavkat, who's still injured, but he's potentially the next guy to go. And you got Sean Brady as well, mixing it up in the contendership as well. I want to. Who do you feel, Mark, should be next?
If he's healthy, I would say Shavkat Rakhmonov. I'm not sure if he is healthy, but it seems like he has done more than enough to have the resume to fight next to the title. If not, maybe it is the winner of Buckley and Usman. There is that beef between Usman and Belal that seems to be kind of interesting to people. And then that fight, by the way, is in Atlanta, my new hometown. Buckley versus Usman.
Are you gonna go?
Was just in, if they hook me up, I'm not paying for a ticket, boys. I mean, I don't know.
Marc Raimondi doesn't pay for tickets. You're not.
I don't pay for UFC tickets. I haven't paid for a ticket since like 2012. Yeah, I'll probably find myself there one way or another. But yeah, I think Buckley has looked so freaking good. I loved how he ran out of the cage and hugged Randy Orton and like screamed like a freaking 8-year-old kid when he saw Randy Orton. And then he runs up to Randy Orton and Randy Orton just towers over him. I mean, that's a giant man. People don't realize how big like WWE like star wrestlers are. Like Buckley's a middleweight, right? Not a big middleweight, but like Randy Orton is like 6'4", and he just towered over this man. I thought it was like a man and a child. Buckley's a great fighter, though. I don't want to talk any crap. But I would say potentially the Buckley winner, the Buckley Usman winner, if Shavkat's not ready, and but it'll probably be Islam or Shavkat. It'll probably be someone like that, someone with an Av at the end of their name.
Yeah, Bane, what do you think? Because Ian Gary's out there putting peanuts around for JDM. He thinks he might be the next guy. That can't be it, right?
No, I love welterweight because there does seem to be a really clear, at least to me, delineation of what's going to happen. So in my mind, like Mark mentioned, Shavkat Rakhmonov is the most logical next person. Then I think you do the most clear number one contender fight in that division of Sean Brady and Ian Gary. Winner of that goes on to fight for the belt. What is interesting about Buckley and Usman is, like you mentioned, there is a little storyline between Kamaru and Belal. I think it would be hard, though, to justify giving Usman a shot off of beating Buckley. Let's say Buckley wins, though. I think he's still got one more win, right? One more that he needs in the top 5 to get it done. Michael Morales is down there at number 12. He's fighting Gilbert Burns soon, so maybe he could be somebody coming up soon. I just love welterweight. I think 170 is a very fun division, but in terms of like next title contender, it's got to be the Nomad.
Are we doing Ian Gary, Leon Edwards next?
No, I think Sean Brady, Ian Gary, that makes the most sense. No disrespect to Leon Edwards, but God, I have no interest in watching him really compete at the moment. And I think he should be kicked down a ways a little bit in the rankings to fight someone. Maybe the Michael Morales Gilbert Burns winner. That's Edwards' next opponent.
It's going to be fascinating, though. Let's take a think about this for a second, Mark. Let's say JDM gets it done. Let's say he beats Belal. What kind of success do you think he could have against some of these other guys in the rankings outside of Islam? Like, let's say it's not going to be Islam coming up next. You got, your Kamarus or your Buckleys or your Ian Garys or your Sean Bradys. How would you see a JDM go in there and actually go against some of those other guys?
Well, I think if he's beating Belal Muhammad, then he has definitely made strides in his game, right? He has gotten better on the feet and possibly and most likely better in his takedown defense, right? So that's a different JDM than maybe we have seen before, because if he's beating Belal, he's at a higher level. And if that JDM continues on as the champion, I think he fares pretty well against guys in the division, because Belal is, maybe he's not the most exciting fighter in the world, but he presents a lot of issues in the fight. So I think that if that version of JDM is the champ, I think that he could definitely do work in the division. I think that he could have a couple of title defenses. Certainly, I'm not sure if he's going to hold it forever. But I mean, no one holds it forever except for John Jones. John Jones was a champion before I started covering MMA, and he's a champion now. I'm not even covering the sport anymore. That's kind of ridiculous. But yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see what happens if we ever see this. Do we think we're ever gonna see this Belal middleweight thing? Like, do we want to see this Bane?
I don't really have a appetite for Belal at 185. I don't think that there's anything up there for him. He's 36 years old. I think he'd be incredibly undersized. I don't think that his skill set will lead to much success at middleweight, respectfully. So I think the only reason that he's mentioned that is, again, to insulate himself from the possibility of, okay, I don't want to fight my buddy Islam Makhachev, so I'll just tell everyone that I'll move to middleweight, even if I don't really intend to.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right, Mark? Like, middleweight, I don't know about that for Belal.
It's a big jump, 170 to 185 is like just on paper, it's a very big jump. And I think that Belal is kind of in the right division for him as far as body size. Middleweight, there are some giant dudes. I mean, there are some 6 foot plus guys at middleweight. Tough matchups there for him.
Mm. You know what's interesting as well? Obviously, we're going to potentially get Islam a welterweight, but the big question was, what would Khabib have looked like if he moved up, right? We always wanted to see the GSP fighter. We know he really cut that weight to get down to lightweight. I want to know from you, Mark, just quickly without sort of breaking it down. Do you think Khabib would have found that success that he had at lightweight if he would have gone up to welterweight? Even if we take GSP out of the picture and the other contenders at the time, do you think he would have found that success?
That, by the way, is one of the biggest what-if fights for me, Khabib versus GSP. Even if it was going to be past GSP's prime, I still would have just loved to have seen that fight because they both wanted it, and the UFC, for whatever reason, kind of poo-pooed it, and I thought that was a missed opportunity. I really did. But anyway, we're never going to see it. And as far as like the adaptation of Khabib to 170, it would have been difficult, right? Because again, size is a real thing. I mean, it's a real issue. Height is a big issue, right? And Khabib is also not the tallest guy in the world, and he would have been going up against much taller guys at 170. But look, Khabib is Khabib. He's one of the greatest of all time. He has that X factor of his wrestling and his grappling, where I don't know if anyone's ever been a better MMA wrestler than Khabib Nurmagomedov. And he had the tenacity and the aggression. But he wasn't a great striker. He really wasn't a great striker. He had limitations as well, and I think that would have hurt him at 170 if he wasn't able to get guys down. But I think he would have done very well there, but it's not the dominance that we saw at 155.
If Islam does go up, Bane, and he's able to do this, does he eclipse Khabib at that point? Like, if he goes up to welterweight, gets the second belt, is that it? Discussion over? Islam is the more dominant legacy?
I think, again, it's such a subjective conversation, like pound for pound. It really boils down to your opinion. I don't think it's fair for me to suggest, hey, he'd be better than this, but it would be hard to argue that Islam Makhachev becoming one of the very few simultaneous 2-division champions inside the UFC with the defenses that he's put up. I mean, twice over Volk. He's got Oliveira on the resume, Poirier, Hooker, Moicano. That's just people in the top 10. Let's say Ilia Topuria's undefeated record gets added to it, and then a belt at 170. I have so much respect for the 29-0 for Khabib Nurmagomedov. That is unprecedented to do in mixed martial arts. But if Islam could check all those boxes, I don't know. Might have to lean that way.
Just quickly before we move on from the topic, Mark, you're big on Ilia Topuria, right? You believe he's going to be the lightweight champ?
I've been for some time.
Do you think this is a guy that can also replicate that success at welterweight as well? Could he be the first guy to win 3 belts in your opinion?
Whew, wow, that would be that might be I don't know about that. Look, I wrote about Ilia Topuria like very early on in his UFC run, before he was getting title fights, and I remember I wrote about him like as like he's this budding star in Spain, and I posted like the article on my Instagram, and like MMA fans, as they do, were like, who's this guy? Who? Never heard of him. Well, I think you all have heard of him now. He's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world right now, and maybe he makes that jump to 155 and wins the title there, which puts him kind of in rarefied air. But 170, I don't know. He's also kind of a slight guy when it comes to size, right? He's not tall, and that can, as someone who is a short king himself, not always easy to compete, against the guys that are significantly taller than you. So I think it would be difficult, but it's all about matchups, right? It's all about matchups. Same thing with Khabib. If he went to 170, it would have been all about matchups. So if there's a guy there that that could be a good stylistic matchup, there's no reason why he couldn't win that fight. He's so freaking talented and skilled at so many different things. I really I haven't watched a ton of UFC in a year. I really have not. But you're damn right I tuned in to see Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. You're damn right I made sure that was appointment viewing for me. I watched it from my hotel room on a laptop in Charlotte, North Carolina, before a Falcons versus Carolina Panthers game.
So you're telling me that you believe he'll beat Islam Makhachev, Mark?
No. I don't. I'm not. That is not what I said. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, you're bigger than man. You're watching him in hotels now. Now you're not backing him against Islam Makhachev. What's going on?
Well, we don't even know that fight's gonna happen. Let's see. Let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens tonight, right? At UFC 315, and then we'll go from there. I think that's a very difficult matchup. We're talking about stylistic matchups. Islam Makhachev is a very difficult matchup for any human being on the planet Earth. So I'm not sure how that fight goes, but I would love to see it.
And a note for that, I mean, becoming a 3-division champion is challenging, but I'll tell you what, boys, I'd favor Ilia Topuria against Colby Covington any day of the week. So maybe wins in 3 weight classes is more possible.
I got to ask you this quickly, Mark, before we move on.
That's Dennis's boy, though, Bane. You got to be careful. Colby is his guy. That's his guy.
Dennis, I encourage you to reconsider.
Listen, guys, I got to tell you this about Colby. He's actually a really nice guy behind the scenes. And when most guys, when they become popular, and Mark, you know this better than most, when they become popular, they change, they stop answering your phone calls, they don't come on your program, like it becomes like kind of a different situation. At least this guy stuck around and supported the guys who supported him. And I'm just going to leave it at that, and you guys make the assumptions that you want about other people. But Mark, just quickly, prime Conor McGregor versus prime Ilia Topuria at featherweight. How do you think that would have gone?
Ilia Topuria wins that fight.
Really?
Because of the wrestling. Conor would not be able to get off with his strikes as well, because he would have had the wrestling of Topuria in the back of his mind, and I think that's the difference in the fight.
Bang.
And I also, to add to that, I agree. Yeah, I take Ilia Topuria. I was just watching the Chad Mendes fight, and there was a lot of striking that Mendes was able to land, right? The defense of McGregor in that fight wasn't not as immaculate as people remember it, right? And if you're going to let Ilia Topuria land those same types of shots, good night,
Well, I'll tell you, man, it's going to be a lot on the line here in Canada. Hey, just quickly, Bane, any other fights that you like before we sort of wrap this thing up?
Yeah, man. I mean, the great Canadian prospect, Mike Malott, back in the featured prelim, Charles Radke opposite him. I think that Chuck Buffalo has this insane vendetta against Canadians. All week long, he has been making this very personal against the country. And I think that it would be a crazy outcome, right? A silencing of the masses, at least in that event center, if Radke can pull it off. But yeah, that featured prelim, I like. Jessica Andrade, always fun to watch. Jasmine Jazz Davicius getting a big opportunity, but yeah, weaker card.
Probably not the best card in Montreal. By the way, just quickly, Mark, what about Rory McDonald? He did a Q&A today. I mean, not today, the other day. And
yep, saw that.
He was talking about how he's kind of done. And I thought back to when we were first watching him, right? Coming up the ranks. Mm-hmm. We thought this guy was going to be here to stay. The way his career panned out, how he ended up basically going into another organization and we never saw him again. Isn't it wild how his career arc planned out compared to what we thought when we were first watching him in the UFC?
Yeah, I think people he drew GSP comparisons. They trained together, and he had that kind of overall well-rounded game like GSP, where he could do a little bit of everything. And I guess he never really achieved that level. He did well in Bellator. He did well in the UFC for when he was there. I really think that fight against Robbie Lawler, that second fight against Robbie Lawler that he had, you guys remember it, right?
Mm-hmm.
UFC 198. Right, UFC 189. Sorry, UFC 189. I apologize. I'm a little rusty at the game right now. But make no mistake, I'm still the guy. But Rory McDonald in that fight, he took a freaking beating. Just a beating. I can't ever forget that last sequence where Robbie Lawler just smashes him in the face and Rory just crumbles to the canvas, like one of the toughest dudes you'll ever see. But Robbie Lawler is just a freaking Wolverine in there, and I don't think Rory was ever the same after that fight, quite frankly.
Speaking of a freaking Wolverine, as we wrap up, we have someone crashing the party, good friend, someone that you know well, Bane. Oscar Willis is here.
Christ.
Yes.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
PTSD coming through. How's things,
start
chaps?
crying. Good.
Are we talking about
good.
this banger of a card we have?
Well,
here
Oscar,
that's
you're
dragged me
on
up
the
to this
scene.
Shit heap.
You're on the
he
scene. You're about to
froze.
experience it.
Bros, it's 'cause the
I
UFC
thought you'd be
right
I thought you'd be in Craig Jones's guard right now, Oscar.
Yeah.
No, I was in his bathroom last night. If you know what I'm saying. But
that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Hey,
How
Oscar,
is Montreal? What's the weather up there
Are
like?
you in the media room?
Bro, you have just missed the ultimate diva freak out from Oscar Willis. I was like, I can't even get ringside for this piece of shit card. But
Wow.
yeah, we're fine. No, yeah, I'm in the media room. We're having a lovely steak for lunch or dinner, whatever you say. Montreal's good. Lots of French people.
are you not sitting
French
As
Canadians.
expected? As expected?
Are you not sitting ringside, Oscar, for this one?
No, just isolated because the French part just have 50 people here. So obviously,
What?
they got to watch
Wow.
Manon win.
Wow.
Wow.
Renowned
Listen, just a
journalist and boxer Oscar Willis getting sidelined. I mean, that might
This
be
is just
worth
little
the,
politics behind the scenes here. But Mark, congrats on the book. I haven't got it yet.
Thank you, Oscar. You
No
better
one has,
pre-order it.
apparently.
I know that
Not
I'm
even
sending
available in Australia.
I'm sending Oscar a copy, but you still better pre-order it.
Hold
I
on, wait a
need-
second.
I
So
need-
I had to buy it, Mark, and Oscar just gets one?
Well, I mean, you know,
Terrible.
Oscar and I have we've bonded over the years.
Do you know one time Mark and I disappeared into the woods of Miami to a crypto conference where there was
Yeah,
lots of
that
shady business going on and we had to run away? It's
It
good.
was one of the weirdest nights. Yes, we were up
Yeah.
until like 6 a.m. It was the week of the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight in Miami, and Oscar. I don't know how the hell we ended up at this party.
Yeah. And I just
I have
remember
no
they kept being
idea.
like, they kept being like, "Do you like crypto?" I was like, "Love it, love Ethereum, bring it on, baby,
Yeah,
to the moon." You know, yeah.
so random, so random.
That was good. I
Hey,
love
Oscar,
that Mark hasn't done it. Go on, sorry, Dennis, go.
No, well, I was gonna ask you, man. Not the biggest event in the world. The build-up was weird. I guess Dana White, like the boys mentioned, announcing the stakes on the main event kind of gets a little bit more interest in what happens today. But how do you rate this week, the way the UFC has done it, and sort of this card you're about to witness?
Well, yeah, listen, it's a couple of great title fights. I think we probably are going to be in for a bit of a long evening. I think outside Benoit, you could look at every fight on the main card, maybe going to decision. So that might be nice for us all. Extra time watching MMA is always good. But yeah, no, I think that I actually believe, a lot of people think Belal's boring. I, for some reason, have this feeling that this main event is actually going to have moments of real excitement. I think with Leon, he kind of accepts bad positions sometimes and sort of just lets the fight get away from him. I don't believe Jack Della Maddalena does that. I don't think Jack accepts those decisions. So I think you'll see quite a much higher pace that Belal will be able to push and Jack will be able to meet. So I'm curious about that. And then that's about it.
What about Ilia Topuria? Who do you think he's fighting after this? What do you
I
think it's
think
going to play out at?
I don't have any inside information, but I would bet money that Dana announces the IFW main event at the post-fight press conference. I would assume that's what's going to happen. And I think it's literally as simple as if Belal wins, then we get Islam Ilia. And if Belal loses, Islam moves up. And then we get Charles versus Ilia for the vacant title. I know Islam tweeted that he wasn't going to vacate the belt, but I think that's probably been. We saw Hutch Campbell in Dagestan and Dubai talking to those guys and those teams. I'm sure that's been organized already, right? So I would imagine that's what we get set up for. And also, by the way, those are two massive fights. I actually prefer the Charles fight, but Ilia Islam is probably better for the sport right now because the sport's in a bit of a recession, as everyone keeps saying. So yeah, either way, though, both good fights from IFW.
Is Belal
Just saw Chris Costello walk by in the background over there.
He did indeed. Ran away from the bar. I suspect on a date last night, but he wouldn't tell me where he was going.
Wow, putting the man on blast on Submission Radio. Goodness gracious.
Is Belal jumping the cage and attacking Craig Jones after the fight?
I mean, I think Craig would love that just for the clout that it would give him. Craig and I did a live watch along of some jiu-jitsu last night, and it's one of those moments where you wake up and go, I should probably not have been on a camera at that point of my jiu-jitsu. So I was kind of curious what got said, so luckily it wasn't recorded or anything. But yeah, Craig's been on form. He has had some great quotes about Belal. I asked him where Belal's biggest holes in his game were, and he said where his right eye should be. Stuff like that, just cheap.
Is there
I
an
think
update
Belal
on
appreciates it though.
CJI 2 August, right? Any fun news for Craig Jones' next invitational?
Last week of August, I believe. I think it's last week of August, the 21st of August. And yeah, it's going to be this team format. Craig's obviously announced he's grappling Gable Stevenson, and I think that's going to be interesting because obviously Gable has ties to John and Gordon Ryan and stuff. So that's good stuff. Craig did tell me some cool stuff coming out in grappling, but I'm not allowed to repeat it until next week.
Fair enough.
So what's the dirt on J-Rod? Oh, you don't think I know about this stuff? I know everything. Nothing gets by me. Nothing gets by me. I know it all. I'm still the guy. I'm still the guy.
Yeah. I love that you haven't done anything in MMA and you came out to discuss Belal versus Jag. This is the one that got you back.
I'm trying to promote a freaking book over here, Oscar. Get off my screen. Christ.
I apologize.
Pre-order it right now.
Yeah.
Hey,
pre-order it right now. Pre-order it.
Link in the description.
I'll pre-order it for you, Mark.
Thank you, Oscar. I'm trying to be a bestseller. That's so wrong.
Did I hear a rumor that you might actually get that? Did I hear a rumor?
I might actually get it. If you freaking pre-order, I'll get that damn thing, Oscar. Jesus.
What's Mark? What's the obstacle in the way of becoming a bestseller? What's left that you need to do to get that title?
Oscar pushing the freaking button on Amazon is what's left.
And delivered. You have to get the book first. I think that's
true.
Honestly, no one actually knows the formula for to become a New York Times bestseller. It's not just based on sales. There's other things that are involved. Even my publisher doesn't know exactly what the formula is, but I'm just trying to get as many sales as possible because
$27? Are you joking?
$26.99. $26.99. Okay, $26.99.
Yeah.
Oscar, with shipping and handling, that's at least $28. So
worth it. If you're an Amazon Prime member, it should be free of shipping. And handling.
I mean, it's $0.00 on audiobook. Maybe I'll just go for that, or $15 on Kindle.
Oh, unavailable if you're in
audiobooks and Kindles do not count toward the New York Times bestseller list.
Who's
got to be a hardcover?
Did you read the audiobook?
Yeah, did you do the audiobook?
I did. I just finished last Monday. On Monday.
Are you saying I could go to bed to the dulcet tones of Marc Raimondi whispering?
I put everything into that too. I was doing the Hulk Hogan voice for his quotes.
I was going to say, did you hit it with the brother?
I think people will actually really like the audiobook. Don't get it though, because I want you to buy the hardcover, but I think people would very much like the audiobook.
Now, when you say you did the Hulk Hogan voice, what quotes were you saying by Hulk Hogan? Were you saying some of his best lines?
That was a good one. That was a good one, brother. That was a good one, brother.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Oscar's got to get to some steak.
He's got to get to pre-ordering the book.
Yeah,
you got to go.
Link in the description. Ben, what do you got coming up? You got a fight coming up, Ben?
Fuck no. A lot of regional MMA, APFC. We've got some fun stuff. X Series on DAZN. I know everyone hates influencer boxing. I don't. Come tune in. Should be a fun time.
And I love, dude, you did such a great job with Craig Jones this week, Oscar. One of my favorite pieces of content that's out there. Another great one from you. Last week, Corey Sandhagen, what do you want people to check out? You're going to have the cage side reaction. Well, not cage side, but backstage reaction.
Backstage.
No floor, brother. No floor.
Oh, the red one. No. We always get the red one, brother. It kills us.
It's funny because there was loads of people back here being like, "Welcome to my world, you fucking."
With the please.
Yeah, look. Post-fight press conference will be good. I'm sure Dana's, gonna drop some information for us, and then I think I'm going to Baku next. Is that next or Newark? One of them. Going to Atlanta. I'll be around.
Well, you going to Atlanta?
I will be in the ATL.
All right, let's link.
No strip clubs. I'm done with those.
Just another crypto press conference.
Yeah, we'll go to a crypto party.
Can you imagine this guy at a strip club with his book, getting strippers to pre-order his book? Because I can.
That could be great marketing.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, we'll get the
little media tour.
Yeah, okay, I'll go. I'll go to the strip club.
He tried to slip a book into my underwear.
No one convinced you.
Me and Bane are flying down, guys. That is it. Game day submission ready. UFC 315 just about to start. Oscar Willis, Bane Davis, and Marc Raimondi back from the dead. Make sure to check out the event and follow the boys. I appreciate you, fellas. And that is it for the first ever episode of Submission Radio Game Day.